So, why am I having you do this? Let me just start and give an explanation. In order to find what the Bible says about a subject, we kind of need to know what the definition of the subject is. Okay? If we put zoology in our Bible search, are we going to find anything in the Bible about zoology? With the word zoology in our concordant search? No. I knew that wasn't a biblical subject. Right? It's not in the Bible. Well, of course, is zoology in the Bible, though? All kinds of animals in the Bible. Okay? So, how do we know how to search the Bible? While we want to search the Bible, we kind of have to have a thorough understanding of what the word is, and that comes from a dictionary. Okay? So, if you're going to, and that doesn't come from your pocket dictionary, you know, the one, or the desk reference dictionary. You should, when you're going to do this, you should look it up either in Webster's 1828 dictionary or in the Oxford complete, like full dictionary of the English language. I think that's downstairs. But one of the Oxford editions of Oxford that we have that must be 25, 30, 40 years old is like 10 volumes, and each book is like 10 by 13. It's a huge. Okay, there's a condensed one that has 4 pages on a page, and they give you a magnifying glass to read the entries. The Oxford Dictionary tells you what the word means, and it also gives you the history of the definition of the word. Okay, take the word prevent. You know that word, prevent, right? What did it mean in 1611, though? All right. You remember the verse, those that are asleep shall not prevent. I don't have the, but you remember that phrase from the scriptures? It's talking about those that are dead will not prevent those that are alive. Well, so that's a different meaning, right? It kind of means go in front of, or whatever. It's a different meaning than how we use prevent today. All right. So. And I might have the order of the verse wrong. But either way, the point is, the Oxford's dictionary tells you the history of the word, which can be really helpful if you're looking for what a word meant. If you're reading an old source and you see a person uses a word in a certain way that doesn't make sense to you today, we think, well, how was he thinking about how that word was used? Okay, so there's long entries. You don't have to read the whole entry to find what you're looking for. But you scan through and, okay, this is what I'm looking for. The Webster's 1828 dictionary is especially helpful because it's an American dictionary of the English language. Now, we're Americans. Do we have any Canadians here? Not at the moment. I almost always have Canadians that I can make fun of in my class. Foreigners. Anyway, so it's an American dictionary of the English language, and Webster was a devout Christian. Webster, he was not attacking the Bible. Webster has his own version of the scriptures, which is almost identical to King James Version. One of the reasons he had it was because the King James used English spellings and stuff like that, and it's an addition. I would say it's more of an addition of the Bible, but it's American spellings. And in 1830 or something, when he had it, it had been 50 years since the last edition. And I'm treading on thin ice here, but between 1611 and 1769, there were multiple editions, 10, 12 editions of the King James Version, and then none. So it was time for a new edition, and it really was, and it still is, because we're still on 1769. Not a new version, just a little updated edition. But that's a side note. Anyway, so all I'm saying is he knew 12, 13 languages. He was a devout Christian. And so when he wrote his dictionary, which you'll see when you start looking up things, his definitions many times are determined by how the word is used in Scripture. So you know how a word can have 10 or 12 definitions. Some have one, but some have many definitions. If you looked up a word that has if you look up a word that's in the Bible, that's used in the Bible, maybe look up the word faith. Okay, there's going to be several definitions, and his support for the definition is going to be a verse of Scripture. He says, faith means, number one, this. And he'll say something, but then he'll give the verse. And you say, oh, okay, I see. That's what it means in that sense. And then number two definition of faith is something else, and there's a verse. Okay, so he's looking at the Scriptures to see how these words are used to give us a definition. That's what a Christian would do, right? The Bible is the authority. Okay, so anyway, so having a Christian dictionary is a tremendous resource for us as Christian educators to get a good sense of what the Bible would say about a subject. Okay, so what I would like you to do now, if you haven't already, is search for the word that we determined you're going to look up in the Webster's Dictionary 1828.com. All right, you've got it? It's fast. It's working today. So when I searched for education, and if you have another window, you could probably see this in your last semester's notes, I found the bringing up as of a child, instruction, formation of manners, period. Education comprehends all that series of instruction and discipline which is intended to enlighten the understanding, correct the temper, and form the manners and habits of youth, and fit them for usefulness in their future stations, period. To give children a good education in manners, arts, and science is important. To give them a religious education is indispensable, and an immense responsibility rests on parents and guardians who neglect these duties. Let's just, so that we can think together, you look up education so that you're looking at the same thing I'm looking at. Okay, so do a second search. Okay, so you're looking at it. Where is the definition that really tells us what education is about in there? There's 3 sentences. Where's the definition? The complete definition. Well, let's just do this. Show me a 1 if you think it's the first sentence, a 2 if you think it's the second sentence, a 3 if you think it's the third sentence, a 4 if you can't figure out which sentence it is. With your hand. Or use 2 hands if you think it's 2 sentences. Okay, all right. So most are saying 2, some are saying 1 and 2. So 1 can be correct, but 2 tells us everything that education is, right? Education comprehends. Okay, so for me, to understand what education is, so that I have a full understanding of what I ought to be teaching when I'm standing up in an education class, I want to really zero in on the second sentence. Okay? So when you're researching your subject, you want to find the definition in the entry. There's an entry in the dictionary, and then there's the definition is in the entry. The third sentence is actually just using education in a sentence. Do you notice that? The third sentence in the entry says to give children a good education. This is using the word education in a proper manner. It's not a definition. Okay? You might even have before those words, you have the like what language the word comes from. You might have a pronunciation. That's important, but that's not important for our exercise. Okay? So we're wanting to see what the definition is. Now, before you go back to your definition, I want to say that what you would do after you get that definition is somehow identify the important words in your first definition, because that helps us, but we can be helped a whole lot more if we look up the important words inside that definition. Okay, so for me, important words here, well, let's just see what you say. What are important words in the second sentence of the definition of education? What would be important? Just one. Each of you, just tell me one. Austin's going first, so you can't say the one he said. What do you got? Instruction. That would be an important word. Deb? Discipline is an important word. Caleb? Enlighten. Yes. Amy? Understanding. Yes. Julie? Correct. Yes. John? Manners. Okay. Yes. Form. All right. I'm sorry? Habits. Yes. How about comprehends? Comprehends is an important word. A series is an important word. You say, I know what a series is. Well, probably, but why not get a better, more full understanding of it? So I have comprehend, series, instruction, discipline, enlighten, understanding, correct, temper, form, manners, habits, youth, fit, usefulness, stations. All those words are important words in that definition. All right? So, now go back to your definition. All right? And I don't have it in front of me, but first off, identify what part of the entry, and understand what I'm saying, what part of the dictionary entry, which is what you have in front of you, is the definition. Okay? Don't pick the shortest thing. Pick the one that gives you a full statement of what your subject is. Have you found it? All right. Austin, you had history, right? So what is the statement of what history is? Listen.
An account of facts, particularly of facts respecting nations or states, a narration of events and the order in which they happened with their causes and effects.
Okay? If you didn't have it in front of you, you might not follow that. An account of facts, particular of nations, in order, with their causes and effects. Those, to me, a lot of important words there that we need to discover a little more what they mean. Amy Jo, you picked a particular field of science. So what is you said chemistry? Okay, what is it for chemistry?
Chemistry may be defined that science.
That science. So what's she going to have to look up? Science. Okay, so that science. Continue.
The object of which is to discover and explain the changes of composition that occur among the integrate and constituent parts of different bodies.
Okay, so, and zoology is going to have something similar to that, isn't it? What's literature? Literature. That's a good definition to look up. What's the statement of the subject?
Literature comprehends a knowledge of the ancient languages denominated classical, history, grammar, rhetoric, logic, geography, etc., as well as of the sciences.
Okay, so that's very broad. And maybe that's to say, well, that's way broader than what I thought we were going to be studying. You might see if there's another word that is more particular to what you're studying. But it probably is that is what literature is. Okay. And that's why there are classes like English literature, American literature, Russian literature, whatever. But you kind of want to know what literature is, and then it gets narrowed by, or themes in literature, right? There's all kinds of ways that we narrow the literature subject. And somebody had government. You guys are in government right now, most of you are, right? So you should know this definition, right? What's the definition of government?
The system of polity in a state, a form of fundamental rules and principles by which a nation or state is governed, or by which individuals, members of a body, political, or to regulate their social actions. A constitution, either written or unwritten, by which the rights and duties of citizens and public officers are prescribed and defined as a monarchical government or republican government.
Okay, that's pretty long. Was that 2 sentences or one? Two sentences.
That was one.
That was 1 sentence. Okay, so whatever it is, you're going to look through that subject and determine what are the important words in that subject. What are the important words that if I know more about that word, it's going to give me a better understanding of what the definition is. Okay? So I've already told you what mine are, and you're not going to follow through on this. I just want you to see it for today. And so then I've written out that definition, and now either below it or somewhere on another piece of paper, now I want to look up and write out the definitions of those important words. So for me, comprehend, it means to contain, to conclude, or to include, to comprise. Okay, that's kind of short. Series means sequence, order, course, succession of things. Instruction means the act of teaching or informing, the understanding in that of which it was before ignorant. Information. Discipline means education, instruction, cultivation and improvement, comprehending instruction in arts, sciences, correct sentiments, morals and manners, and due subordination to authority. Enlighten means to give light to give clearer views, to illuminate, to instruct, to enable to see or comprehend truth. Okay, and so you get the idea. We look up every one of those. Now that is the second level of definitions. You understand? We have the first definition and then the second level. Now to get a very full understanding of this subject, which you really want to have, you need to go to the third level. And so what does that mean? That means in these definitions, I'm going to underline or identify in some way the words that are important to understanding them. Now you would notice already that some of the definitions are words that I'm already have important words in them that I'm already defining. Okay? Like manners, instruction, education, right? I already have those definitions, so I don't need to rewrite that out. I've written it out once already. But include, I think I know what that is. Comprise, contain, one of those probably I should look up. Sequence, what is sequence? I think I know what sequence is, but maybe I'll look that up. Ignorant, what does ignorant mean? Now we use that word in a lot of different ways, but how is that word being used in the dictionary? Illuminate, and then I didn't even get to these others, but some words I would want to look up in the third level of defining: rectify, propriety. Under temper we have disposition of mind, and then particularly with regard to passions and affections, I'd want to look up those words. Form means to mold, to model, so I'm going to look up mold and model. Manners is deportment, carriage, behavior. I kind of know what manners is, but let's just look up those words so I get a very full understanding. Fit means to prepare or to furnish. Usefulness means conduciveness to some end. Okay, so any words in there that seem to hold weight, I want to identify them and then define those. Okay, so I've got my definition, then I've got important words in here. So then I have those words defined, and then I've got important words in here, and this is where actually using a computer can be helpful, but then we lose the benefit of having our minds really engaged with it. But so then we're going to have a third level unless we, put it in here somewhere of these words defined. Understand the idea? Okay, so then I think it's a very good exercise then to take these definitions and create what I call a composite definition. A composite definition. So this is going to be a bigger, more full definition than Webster's definition. Okay, so what's going to happen with a composite definition? When I get to this first important word, instead of putting that word there, I'm going to put a key thought, an explanatory thought from the definition of that word in its place. Okay? And while I'm going through that secondary definition, if there's a big word there that I might not use many of these third level, tertiary level definitions because it might not really be that helpful to it because I've got a brain. I'm not just going to insert every single thing. But if one just really kind of expands it and helps me understand, then I'm going to put that in the place of that that's actually going up here. So once we finish with these levels and we've used the important parts of the important words up here, we have this very long composite definition that has almost no weighty words in it. Does that make sense? So a definition is normally concise and it uses key important words. We've just broke those important words out so that we get a simpler, lengthier, okay? It's lengthier because it's simpler. It's using more words. Don't use 10 words where one will do. This is the opposite, right? We're going to use those words and fill them in so that we have, it might be a paragraph long, but you're reading that and you're getting 20 definitions as you're going through this one definition. Does that make sense about what a composite definition would be? So now, you have spent hours to do this. If you're going to do it correctly, you've spent hours to do this, but you should, by the time you finish this, have a very, very full understanding of just the word. And the word is the subject that you're wanting to teach. You've got a good definition of everything that's involved in teaching this.